Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak Graphix. And today on HJN Graphix, we're going to go along with something different right here for episode number 832 in the entire series. Man, this has gone on pretty darn long. But anyways, let's get on with the Bethesda property, which is now, of course, a property of Microsoft itself, Doom 2016. Yeah. I've discussed this before though. Bethesda acquired both Doom and Wolfenstein after id Software had basically went out of business. id Software was very famous for bringing along Doom and Wolfenstein and bringing a whole new generation of audiences all over the place. It practically invented the first-person shooter genre of video games. And the way I see it, it did a pretty nice job at the time, being able to be on both Super Nintendo and PC for the most part. But we also cannot forget the many things that went wrong with Super Nintendo-based ports of both games. The way that they became more censored and toned down. That itself was a bit of a controversy in its own right, but all for the right reasons. To keep our children safe, to keep a lot of people safe actually from all this stuff that happens. Oh man, you would not want to see what happens today. Anybody who's from the early 90s, fast forward to 30 years later almost, and here we are with basically a whole new line of Wolfenstein and Doom titles that are now owned by Bethesda, which some time ago got acquired by Microsoft. So, it does seem that Microsoft now owns both franchises pretty much. Bethesda is still the generalized owner of both franchises, but Microsoft has ownership of Bethesda, so that's pretty much just how that is. And I will say though, when talking about the Doom series, the way that Bethesda was able to reboot this franchise, as well as the Wolfenstein franchise, I've talked about the Wolfenstein games before, well, just one in particular, The New Order, but that, of course, was released in 2014. It was pretty much the start of a whole new line of Wolfenstein/Doom titles that Bethesda would in fact have under their operation. Then came Doom 2016. Man, it did pretty darn well. It was also one of the first games I ever pretty much paid up with my own money, basically as a way to continue GWK work. When I bought a copy of it, when it was on sale at Target, back in late 2018, I did not actually realize it would be as impressive as many people might have thought. Because I did in fact get to know a lot about the Doom series, with Doom BFG from 2012, and that at the time was a brand new release on the PlayStation 3. So, it had of course been years since I got to hear a lot about Doom. Doom 2016 came out in 2016, and in 2018 was when I bought a copy of it. Eventually, I got news about a sequel, Doom Eternal, which would be released in 2019, less than a year after I bought that copy. But then of course after some delays, it got pushed from its original November 2019 slated release to a new slated release in March 2020. Which it did, of course, come out then, right when the pandemic hit, for the first time, at least. Because we're now in a triple pandemic. Man, is it considerably worse. I cannot even bear the thought about it. But at this point in time, Doom 2016, being a fresh new approach to what the original Doom series had started off with in the early 90s, gave us a whole new look at what we could see, how Bethesda's talent in coding and creating a more revolutionary, rebooted, recontrasted, reconstituted way of what the original Doom titles and Wolfenstein titles had given us way back in the day by id Software. So, it's safe to say that we're probably going to be seeing more of these things every now and then. Because of how huge the Wolfenstein series has gotten, and Doom eventually got bigger as well, now having 2 games in comparison to Wolfenstein having 4, I tell ya, this is just incredible the way that we see it. But yet, it's important to note that the story to Doom 2016 is certainly much different than what you'd expect. The Doom guy, whom in this continuity is now referred to as the Doom Slayer, awakens inside of a sarcophagus, bound in chains, and then breaks free after certain demons start coming after. The Doom Slayer kills them, and then eventually finds the old Praetor suit, puts it on, and eventually gets messages from a Dr. Samuel Hayden, whom of course is the lead of the UAC, a facility on the planet Mars. And this same exact planet is also known for housing a magical gateway to another dimension, a world where the demons come from, all types of monsters of all sorts of things taking place, from the massive Mancubus to the legendary Barons and to the gigantic Spider Mind. Man, I tell you, the way I was able to learn about all the lore surrounding the new Doom titles is just fascinating. But when you really get down to it though, Doom is not necessarily just about the amazing fantasy / horror stories that are taking place, but it's also about the kind of gunfights that take place. You start off with a pistol that has infinite rounds, then upgrade to a pump shotgun, followed by a heavy assault rifle, which was not really in the original games, but it's still fun to try to be different from the original, at the same time trying to be more of a remake of what the original had been like, with all the lore that we were able to get already. Then after all that, you progress on to even bigger weapons. The Gatling gun, rocket launcher, and of course the massive BFG 9000. BFG, of course, in real life stands for Blast Frequency Gun, but canonically people have called it something different. A big effing gun. Yeah, literally. That's what people have been calling it nowadays, which is just silly. So, of course, it is the most powerful weapon in the entire game. Fires ginormous green balls of plasma, able to wipe out anything in its path. Enormous amounts of splash damage, and they're practically able to eliminate gigantic-sized enemies like the Barons, the Cacodemons, and the almighty Cyber Demon in at least one shot, which is just massive. It's probably the most powerful weapon you could ever find in an FPS game, period. Way more powerful than that of the HAMR from Black Ops 2, way more powerful than that of the rocket launcher from Ark Survival Evolved, and way more powerful than the flamethrower from Dino D-Day. So, of all weapons I've ever gotten to know about in an FPS title, that's really saying a lot. And that is quite an accomplishment. But still, I guess if there's a few things that are missing, canonically at least, then it would probably be the sort of backstory that had taken place. And then of course, the pet rabbit Daisy, and who could forget, the Unmaker, a portable death ray that fires ginormous amounts of laser beams that are made by feeding off demonic energy from the targets around it. So, unfortunately, this title, at least, this Doom title, is not necessarily meant to be more like what the original gave us, but it's still alright, at least, because it was the first title, and because we eventually got a sequel 4 years later. I will probably have to talk about that soon enough, but until then though, I will say, from the first to the finish, it was just amazing. And boss fights were all over the place. You had the famous Cyber Demon, and then you have the Guardians of the Crucifix. The Crucible itself, which of course can be fixated on large portions of what's called the well inside the story. The Crucible is in fact a device that also doubles as a large sword, which of course does not really get revealed until the very end of the game, when Dr. Samuel Hayden pulls you back out of the dimension with a tethering device. This tether is also able to trap the Doomslayer in some sort of prison well, which I was able to find that out because of certain lore. It's not really explained very well in the game, but of course, the ending itself is what really gave me a lot of hope, knowing that there was going to be a sequel a full year after I basically bought my copy of Doom 2016. But again, the process of release had been delayed to March 2020. And by the time I actually went ahead and picked up a copy of it, the pandemic came by and did a whole lot of things to most other people. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to ruin my life, ever. I'm just that hard to displease. So, well, you know what? That's probably just what I gotta say about all that. So, if you want to see more, go down to my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.